The Galactic Empire had existed for countless millennia, stretching its influence across thousands of worlds, imposing order and control wherever it went. Ruling with an iron fist, they encountered countless species, each eventually bending to their will or vanishing into the annals of history. To the Empire, every new planet was simply another conquest, another world to add to their ever-expanding domain. Nothing ever truly challenged their power, and they had grown accustomed to the idea that the galaxy belonged to them. The might of their warships, the grandeur of their empire, and the unwavering certainty of their superiority made them dismiss any other possibility. But all of that changed one fateful day when a small exploration ship stumbled upon a mysterious signal emanating from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It wasn't just static or random noise, it was music, familiar to the crew, a symphony of sounds, a composition by Beethoven himself. It wasn't something the Empire had encountered before, and its complexity intrigued the ship's captain. The signal was coming from a distant, seemingly insignificant planet called Earth. For a moment, the crew stared at the readings, confused and curious. How could a planet on the outer edge of the galaxy be transmitting such intricate, human-made music? The captain ordered the ship's scanners to analyze the source. It was definitely coming from Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, hardly a place the Empire would expect to find anything of importance. But the signal was undeniable. The captain sent a report to the Empire's Central Command. He wasn't sure what to make of it, but something about this signal felt different, like a warning, a message from a world they hadn't considered. The Empire's higher-ups were intrigued but not concerned. Another outpost of primitive life, they assumed. They'd send a fleet, demand the planet's allegiance, and move on. It was how things had always been done. They had never known fear. In their minds, the humans of Earth would be no different from the countless other races they had encountered. They would either submit or be destroyed, and the Empire's reign would continue. The commander of the fleet that was to make contact with Earth felt the same way. A planet of simple creatures who still listened to music from centuries ago? No challenge at all. His mind was already on the glory of conquest and the subjugation of another world. Little did he know, he was about to learn just how wrong his assumptions were. As the fleet made its way toward Earth, the Empire's command center buzzed with preparations for what they believed would be a straightforward operation. But something in the back of the commander's mind began to stir. The music from that strange signal still echoed in his thoughts. It wasn't just music, it was a message, and it was coming from a world they had overlooked. A world they had no idea had been preparing for something far bigger than the Empire could ever imagine. The Empire's fleet arrived above Earth with all the grandeur and intimidation that only centuries of dominance could afford. Massive warships, glowing with power, surrounded the small blue planet, their weapons primed and ready. The commander stood at the helm of the lead ship, his face set in the confident, unshakable expression of someone who had never known defeat. Their mission was clear: announce the Empire's arrival, demand Earth's allegiance, and prepare to integrate the planet into the vast network of worlds under their control. The Empire was a symbol of power, and its leaders expected nothing less than submission from any lesser species. A broadcast was sent out to Earth, the message booming across the frequencies in a voice that dripped with authority. You now belong to the Galactic Empire. Surrender peacefully, and your world will be spared the consequences of resistance. The message was simple, direct, and meant to strike fear into the hearts of those who heard it. But what came next wasn't fear. A calm, almost casual voice responded, cutting through the static with surprising ease. "You're late?" The words echoed across the communication channel, leaving the commander and his officers momentarily speechless. Earth's voice was neither trembling nor pleading. It didn't sound like a species on the verge of panic. It sounded relaxed. The commander blinked, disoriented by the response. "What?" he demanded, his tone now tinged with irritation. A human voice, now projected from Earth's communications station, continued. "We've been watching the stars for years. We saw your ships, your empire. We just didn't feel like saying hello." The commander's grip tightened on the control panel. This was no ordinary world, no ordinary race. Earth was not cowering, not trembling in fear as the Empire had expected. Instead, they were uninterested. The audacity of it was almost infuriating. But before the commander could issue any further commands, the communication continued. "We've been aware of your presence for longer than you think, and we've chosen not to engage with your empire until now." The words struck a chord, leaving the Empire's fleet in a moment of stunned silence. The Empire's officers exchanged confused glances, their minds struggling to comprehend the meaning behind this response. This wasn't the reaction they were accustomed to. The commander tried to regain his composure. "You have no idea who you're speaking to. You will bow before the Empire." But the human voice didn't waver, its tone almost amused. "We don't bow to anyone." With those words, the transmission ended. The fleet hung in the void of space, the silence of the moment pressing in around them. The Empire had always believed it was unstoppable. It had never expected such calm, such confidence, from a species that had not even developed interstellar travel. Earth wasn't afraid. Earth wasn't begging. And the Empire was beginning to realize they had made a grave mistake by underestimating this seemingly insignificant planet. It was a realization that would change everything. The Empire's disbelief turned to action, and its fleet immediately began scanning Earth's surface, convinced they had overlooked something important. The initial scan showed a planet far from advanced, with primitive technology and scattered, relatively simple cities. It seemed like an easy target, nothing to fear. The Empire's officers chuckled. A world still relying on fossil fuels, with no spacefaring capabilities of its own, no powerful fleets or weapons to speak of. They were nothing like the vast galactic civilizations the Empire had conquered. But the commander's mind lingered on one question. How could a species with so little advance so far in their silence? There had to be something more. Something the scanners hadn't detected yet. His curiosity grew. He ordered deeper scans, more advanced probes to be launched, and within hours new data flooded in. Data that made the Empire's commanding officers grow silent. Hidden beneath the surface of Earth, beneath oceans and deserts, there were structures that defied logic. On Mars, an entire underground base sat waiting, its advanced machinery hidden from the Empire's view for centuries. The scanning technology couldn't have missed it, and yet it had. More findings appeared. A massive ship was found orbiting Jupiter, camouflaged by layers of debris, cloaked in a way that even the Empire's best scanners couldn't penetrate. This ship, larger than anything the Empire had ever constructed, was a warship. Not just any ship, but one designed for battle, for defense, and likely capable of massive destruction. But Earth hadn't even shown it. Why? What had they been preparing for? The commander and his officers scrambled to make sense of the data. How had this world, this primitive planet, kept all of this a secret? They had no answers. The Empire had never encountered such careful and clever evasion. It was as if Earth had been watching them for years, learning everything they could about the Empire's technologies and weaknesses while remaining hidden in plain sight. The more the Empire tried to scan, the more they realized they hadn't been looking at the right things. They had underestimated this small planet, assuming it was weak, when in fact, it had been quietly building an arsenal, watching and waiting. The Empire had grown arrogant, believing that anyone who hadn't been involved in galactic affairs couldn't possibly present a challenge. They had missed what lay beneath Earth's surface, literally and figuratively. Their technologies, designed for conquest, had failed to uncover the truth. Humanity had been preparing, not for submission, but for self-preservation. And now, the Empire's fleet found itself staring at the evidence of a species that, though quiet and unassuming, had never been as helpless as it appeared. As the realization set in, the commander's earlier confidence began to slip. He knew something had changed. This was no longer a simple mission of conquest. The Empire was facing a mystery they hadn't anticipated. A species that had learned from them, studied their every move, and had built itself up to a point where it could, if necessary, defend itself. Earth was no longer an easy target. It had become a puzzle, a challenge the Empire was not ready to solve. The Empire's confusion turned to frustration as they dug deeper into Earth's hidden capabilities. The discovery of the underground bases, the massive warship in orbit, and the advanced technologies scattered across the planet should have been enough to send any conqueror into a retreat. But instead of backing off, the Empire pressed harder, determined to figure out how humanity had achieved such secrecy. As they began to analyze more of Earth's history, the truth emerged, not through their scanners, but from the humans themselves. The human ambassador, calm and composed, offered to share a story. The Empire's commanders were skeptical. Earth wasn't supposed to be a threat, yet this strange confidence from the humans seemed to point to something far more profound. They sat, waiting, as the human began. Centuries ago, we discovered something we couldn't ignore. We started picking up signals from other civilizations, from races far beyond the reaches of our planet. Some of these signals were warnings, others, lessons. We learned about the great empires, the wars they fought, and the fear that followed them wherever they went. And we learned about your empire, the human began, his voice steady. The commander's eyes narrowed as he listened. The human continued. When we saw what you did to the planets you conquered, how you destroyed, enslaved, and ruled, we made a decision. We chose to wait. We chose not to engage. The commander snorted, unable to understand how a species would voluntarily remain in ignorance. You could have joined us. You could have been part of something bigger, he said, his voice tinged with superiority. The human smiled softly, not in mockery, but in quiet understanding. Bigger? Yes, but at what cost? We were aware of what was coming, and we knew we had to prepare, not just for conquest, but for survival. With that, the human's tone shifted. You think you're the first to discover us? You're wrong. We've been watching you for centuries, observing your movements, your strategies. We saw the rise of your empire and the way you swept across the stars. But instead of rushing to join, we chose to learn. And as you grew more confident, we grew more cautious. The Empire's officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. The human continued. We've been preparing for this day, for your arrival. We've studied your ships, your weapons, your tactics. We've learned how to hide, how to defend ourselves, how to make sure no one would ever underestimate us again. And now, you stand here, looking at a world you thought was insignificant, unaware that we've been waiting for this moment. The human's words rang through the commanders, striking a deep chord. The realization hit them like a thunderclap. They had not only misjudged Earth, they had completely underestimated the human's intelligence and foresight. Earth had been observing, preparing, and learning everything it could, and now the Empire was standing at the edge of a situation it had never been trained for. A species that wasn't lost, wasn't ignorant, and had no intention of submitting. They had prepared for the Empire's arrival, not as a threat to be feared, but as an opportunity to show the galaxy that the smallest, most overlooked species could be the one to challenge the greatest power. The Empire had been blind, and now they would have to face the consequences of their arrogance. The commander and his officers stood in stunned silence, the weight of the human's words sinking in deeper with every passing second. The confidence that had once been so strong began to fade, replaced by a growing unease. They had expected an easy victory, a simple mission of domination. Instead, they found themselves facing a species far more capable than they could have imagined. The Empire's leaders had always believed that their advanced technology, their overwhelming numbers, and their decades of dominance would make any confrontation with a lesser species a mere formality. Yet here they stood, facing the humbling reality that Earth had anticipated them, prepared for them, and, most alarmingly, had never once been intimidated by their supposed superiority. The human ambassador didn't let the silence linger. He offered one last piece of information, the final confirmation of humanity's plans. You think we've been hiding, but that's not the case. We've been waiting for this moment, when you would show up and make your intentions clear. We knew that if we didn't take control of our fate, we would fall under your rule. But we won't allow that. Not anymore. As the words left his lips, the fleet above Earth began to notice something strange. The long-hidden warships that had once been only rumors to the Empire now appeared on their scanners. Massive vessels, built not just for survival, but for strategic warfare, began to emerge from the shadows of the planet's moons, from deep within the asteroid belts, and from the oceans of Earth itself. These ships, made of materials unknown to the Empire, glowed with a faint energy, as though powered by a force they couldn't detect or comprehend. The once-hidden bases across the planet began to power up, sending out signals that confused and disoriented the Empire's fleet. Earth's ships weren't simply waiting to defend. They were preparing for a counterstrike, and their weapons were unlike anything the Empire had encountered. The Earth defense system came alive in a coordinated effort, each warship seamlessly communicating with the others, forming a protective network around their planet. The Empire's ships, usually so efficient and precise, now found themselves locked in a situation they had never expected, a well-organized, highly intelligent resistance that had anticipated every move, every tactic, and every action they might take. The commander, realizing how badly they had miscalculated, barked orders to engage, to fight back. But no matter how much firepower the Empire unleashed, no matter how many ships they sent, they couldn't break through Earth's defenses. The battle waged on, but the Empire's forces were quickly losing ground. It wasn't just a fight for territory, it was a battle for survival. Earth wasn't simply resisting. They were teaching the Empire a harsh lesson about the limits of power. The small, seemingly insignificant planet had not only resisted conquest, but had also developed the means to defend itself with terrifying precision. With every attack that failed, the commander's frustration mounted. The fleet had underestimated humanity in every way imaginable. The warships that Earth had concealed for so long now struck with the fury of a species that had spent centuries preparing, waiting for their moment to act. The commander could only watch as his fleet faltered, and the realization hit him hard. Earth had never been lost at all. It had only been waiting for the Empire to stumble upon it. Now, the tables had turned. The Empire wasn't the conqueror. It was the one under threat. The battle raged on, but the tide had undeniably turned. The Empire's once confident warships, now outnumbered and outmaneuvered, struggled to gain control. Earth's hidden fleet, previously thought to be non-existent, proved to be far superior, in both strategy and technology. Despite their initial advantage in sheer firepower, the Empire found themselves caught off guard by humanity's impeccable coordination and ingenious defense systems. Earth's ships, large and seemingly archaic in appearance compared to the Empire's sleek war machines, moved with a fluidity and precision that defied logic. They communicated on frequencies that the Empire's scanners couldn't intercept, and their weapons, though simple at first glance, were devastatingly effective. The Empire's fleet launched attack after attack, but every strike was met with a well-timed countermeasure. Every attempt to breach Earth's atmosphere thwarted by energy shields that seemed to absorb the force rather than dissipate it. In the midst of the chaos, the human ambassador's calm demeanor remained unshaken. He had long understood that the fight wasn't about brute force. It was about outsmarting the Empire, about turning their confidence into a weakness. While the Empire's fleet struggled with the overwhelming defenses of Earth, humanity's strategy was to isolate and wear down the attackers, making them expend all their energy in futile efforts. The commander, now feeling the heat of defeat, tried to rally his forces. But it was becoming clear that their superior technology and numbers could not overcome the ingenuity of a species that had spent centuries learning, adapting, and preparing. Earth's strategy was a game of patience and precision. As each wave of attacks from the Empire faltered, they were met with increasingly aggressive counterattacks. The once pristine ships of the Empire now bore scars and dents, their systems beginning to malfunction as they struggled to keep up with the relentless onslaught from a species they had long believed beneath them. The commander ordered a retreat, hoping to regroup and reconsider his approach. But the humans weren't done. As the Empire's fleet attempted to pull back, Earth's ships moved quickly into position, cutting off escape routes and forcing the Empire's warships into a circle of containment. It became clear that Earth wasn't just fighting for survival. They were intent on teaching a lesson. The commander's once unshakable resolve crumbled as he watched his fleet slowly surrender to a force they never thought would exist. It wasn't simply that Earth had fought back. It was that they had done so with a brilliance and efficiency that the Empire hadn't even dreamed possible. No longer could the Empire claim to be the masters of the galaxy. The battle wasn't won through might, but through the sheer resilience and intelligence of a species that had never been as powerless as it seemed. The commander understood the gravity of his mistake now. Earth was not lost. It had never been lost. It had simply been waiting. The realization dawned upon him, and with it, the quiet acknowledgement that the Empire's grip on the galaxy was far more fragile than they had ever believed. The final moments of the battle were marked by a haunting stillness that settled over the Empire's fleet. The once thriving ships, brimming with confidence and strength, now floated damaged and vulnerable in the vastness of space, surrounded by Earth's fleet. The tables had completely turned. The once proud commanders of the Empire, who had arrived expecting a swift victory, now faced the undeniable reality that their mission had failed. Earth's ships, once hidden in the shadows, now filled the skies, towering over the remnants of the Empire's forces. Each vessel was a testament to humanity's resilience and preparation. The commander, his face drawn with disbelief and frustration, watched as his fleet's communication lines crackled with reports of more damage, more systems failing, and more ships losing power. His orders had been clear: destroy the resistance. But the resistance, instead of crumbling under pressure, had only grown stronger with every passing hour. The Empire's arrogance had led them to underestimate humanity, and now it was too late. Earth's ships, once thought to be mere relics or outdated technology, proved to be more advanced and strategic than anything the Empire had ever faced. Every attack they launched, every weapon they fired, only seemed to strengthen the resolve of the humans. The commander, now fully aware of the disastrous turn his mission had taken, initiated a desperate call for a retreat. But retreating seemed impossible. Earth's ships, like a vast web of interconnected forces, had already blocked every possible escape route. The commander was trapped, his fleet surrounded by a force he couldn't understand, let alone defeat. The human ambassador's words echoed in his mind, words that had once seemed arrogant, but now rang with undeniable truth. Humanity had watched, learned, and prepared, waiting for the day when the Empire would finally come to them. It had not been a matter of if they would fight back, but when. The realization that Earth had never been as weak or helpless as the Empire had believed was now clear to everyone. Earth had spent centuries quietly studying the Empire, learning from its tactics, and developing technology that surpassed anything the Empire had anticipated. No longer could the Empire claim to be the master of the galaxy. The battle was lost. With every minute that passed, the remnants of the fleet grew smaller, scattered and disoriented. The humans had achieved what seemed impossible. They had not only fought back, but they had defeated a force that had once seemed unstoppable. In the silence that followed the end of the battle, the commander knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Earth had proved that even the smallest, most overlooked species could rise against the greatest powers in the galaxy. The Empire had stumbled upon humanity, and in doing so, they had learned a painful lesson. Humanity was not lost, not weak, and certainly not to be underestimated. The power had shifted, and the galaxy would never forget the day when Earth's quiet resistance had taken down the Empire,